Okay guys, new quickie project. I say quickie, it'll probably take me a couple of days. Those of you who follow me know, or hopefully know, that I'm out here in the shop almost every day doing something. May not be anything real constructive, but I'm always doing something. So I've got a whole lot of progress done on the corn tool and cutter grinder, waiting on some parts for the lathe, and I could have been working on tool and cutter grinder today, but I didn't really feel like it. When I walk the dog in the morning, we're out early every morning, and I'll kind of plan my day if I don't have anything really lined out that I definitely want to do that day. So this morning I was out and about and I decided to do this little project. Now, I've got my little welding table here, my TIG welding table, what I consider my TIG welding table, and I'll bring it down here and show it to you as we get going here. It started out as a machine platen for something at some time years and years ago. There was a whole bunch of these floating around, and I had access to a couple of them. And I don't remember exactly what they were set up as now. So I built it into a welding table. I did a video quite a while back where I showed that I'd mounted a rack for all my barrel vise parts and things like that. And that's what I've used it for, is it's my barrel vise bolts to it. And I just use it as a TIG table most of the time for my TIG welding stuff. Kind of lay things out and I'll weld on it quite a bit every once in a while. But anyway, primarily my TIG bench. I've got a bigger table outside that's just an old rusted up table, heavy duty table. Actually came from the same source, and it's on wheels. I can roll it around. But this one, I'm going to go ahead and drill it out, and then drill and tap part of the holes for a fixture table. I've already laid it out. I've got the holes all center punched, and I've got 99 holes to drill, and half of those will be tapped. And I'm doing a 5/8 hole spacing and 5/8 thread. The reason being that is what is on my big planer, the metal planer. The tooling for that is 5/8, and that's what I'm going to build up more tooling for that on, based on 5/8 11 and 5/8 hold stuff. And I'm trying to kind of standardize it. So I've got way more holes laid out here. I'm not going to utilize everything that I've got here, but while I'm drilling, I think I'm going to at least attempt to get them all drilled out and tapped, and have a table, make it a little more versatile. Hopefully I've got it all true to the world, and everything is in line for what I'm going to use it for. If I'm off a little bit, I'm not going to worry about it for this project. You know, eventually we'll do a bigger welding and fixture table, but for space constraints and what I've got, and I've already got this, why, this is where we're at. So this is the table from the top. I'm going to drill 5/8 holes. Every other one is going to be 5/8, or is going to be drilled, and then the other ones are going to be drilled and tapped for 5/8 11. So I've skipped putting holes around where the legs bolt underneath, because there's nothing, if I drop something through a hole on the table itself, why, it'll fall on through. If I drop it through where one of these feet's welded on, or legs is welded on, why, it's just lost forever down there. Already got holes in it. You know, before I got it, it had these holes at the back, and it had this hole, you know, lifting holes, alignment holes, whatever they were. And I've drilled other holes. My barrel vise mounts right here, and there's actually 4 holes that are lined out for a fixture here, for a product that I built. So anything that was close to those holes that I thought would interfere, I'm just going to skip that hole. It's not, you know, it's not that critical for what I'm doing with it. So these are my 5/8 studs. These are just a couple that I'd gotten from McMaster that I'm going to use on everything. Use them on the planer. Use them on this little fixture table for anything I need, and then you know, for a larger fixture table, unless something just drastically changes, I'm going to use the same layout, design, holes, fixtures, and everything for on a larger table. So let me drag my mag drill up here, and we're just going to start lining it out and drilling them. I believe this is probably the proper. Yep. And there again, I'm not in a hurry on this. We're just going to putter along and see how much we can accomplish, if we can accomplish anything. This hasn't been used for a couple of years, so hopefully everything's going to work with it. Where did I put my glasses? What are you doing, pup? I'm going to mark all, or wipe all my markings off, and have to go back and figure everything out as we go. Watch out. Come on, pup. We are locked in there. We're in low speed here. We got to run it the right direction. Now see, I don't know if I'm going to be comfortable trying to tap off of this with this machine or not. And I'm almost thinking probably not. You want to go inside? Come on, I'll let you inside. Oh, come on. This is going to be a long, drawn-out process. So there's the second one. We're just going to proceed on as we go, and I'll bring you back after we either get them all drilled, or most of them are drilled, or one more, something. Anyway, that's the process. So we're just going to move right along and continue drilling them. So this is the table in its current configuration. You know, you've seen me weld on this table before. I had some holes drilled in it for things like my barrel vise sits right here. And I've had a couple layouts that for products that I've built over the years, or projects that I've done over the years that I've just built holes. So I went back and I put a table, or put holes in it. These are just 5/8 through holes that I'm using for fixtures. And then these are 5/8 11, I think is what the threading is on these for studs. Every other hole when it was convenient. You know, if it interfered with a hole that was already here, too close, something like that, I didn't worry about it. And it's not perfect. I've got a couple of baubles on it that for what I want to use it for really doesn't matter. I'll build little small fixtures that I'll just drop in or bolt in place to hold them in position more than anything else. But this will give me a little more versatility. I've taken and added a bunch of studs, or I'm slowly adding studs. These are from McMaster in different lengths and stuff. These are a few of them sitting here. I went with this 5/8 thread because that's what my planer tooling is that came with the planer. So as I build more tooling for the planer, I'm going to base that off of 5/8 threaded parts. So I wanted something a little more universal. So that's why I went with 5/8 here. And I'm doing the same thing everybody else is doing on their fixture tables. I'm building cheap Harbor Fright hold down clamps and stuff. These are some that I finished up yesterday, and you know, they work out fine. Guys are just taking and cutting off at the bottoms of the jaws. I've ground off the rivet and pushed out the rivet and knocked the bottom cast iron jaw off, so I get that extra ½ inch or whatever it is. Probably doesn't make any difference. 5/8 bolts, whether they're shoulder bolts or standard bolts, the guys have been using, and some guys are just taking a piece of 5/8 and welding onto the end to drop in there. What I ended up and did, I was going to use bolts, just standard bolts, and I was too cheap to do that for just a standard grade 5 bolt with a shoulder on it. They were $3 and up per bolt. Well, that's more than I paid for the clamps on sale. So I just set up in the lathe, took some 3/4 inch stock, turned it back to a shoulder, and I parted these off in the lathe. The rest of them that I make, I'm just going to take and turn up to a shoulder, add my bevels here, and then I'm just going to take it over to the metal cutting miter saw and just bob them off to length. That'll be fine, and then just hit them with the grinder on the end. This to me was a whole lot cheaper and easier than messing around I was going to have to cut down bolts and everything anyway. And this gives me a shoulder for them to set on, so they lock in real well. You know, do a good job as well as anything else. And these are quick to make. I face off the end, add a bevel. I can turn this diameter for just under 1 inch is what I'm using here in one pass on the lathe, and it's a done deal. So anyway, those are going to work out pretty well. That's kind of what I'm messing with today. Is I've got 4 more of these that I'm going to turn into these style hold downs, and then I've got some cheapy vice grips I'm going to do the same with, so they drop in the same way. All right, guys. Well, I was going to end this, but I was kind of intrigued. Now I've got my 4 little ones done here. I'll just wire brush them off and hit them with some satin black paint, and that'll take care of them. But here's the first one of these that I did, and this one's still kind of warm. So I thought it was kind of interesting. You know, you see a lot of guys doing these, and they kind of tell you how to do it, but I haven't seen anybody really tell you how they figure out what their angles are and stuff. So I thought I would very quickly do that. I've got my studs, so this is what it is. And for this height, now it's going to be different if you're just using something that comes out flush with this or something that way. But for this, what I did, and it took me a couple of cuts on that one and then just grinding them. But what I did was I took and extended this one all the way down and cut off your bottom jaw long, and you can go back and cut it a second time. But what I did was I turned it in all the way, and I set it down on the bench. Before I did that, this swivel pad would only go so far. So I did have to go in and radius this edge. I just reached in with my belt sander and just sanded that smooth to get some more travel out of that swivel pad, so it'll set flat on the table. And then I just took and checked my angle until I got it. Now I'm in too tight, I think. Until I got it with the pad sitting flush, I adjusted my tension knob on the back of it. There we go. You can see there it's higher at the back than it is at the front part. If you adjust it back and forth until you get that level sitting on your pad with it just almost in the locked position. And that's how I adjusted what my angle was and how tall it was. Because if you got it too long, it'll only set up so far on the table. And I mean, if you only want it to hold a 3/4 inch square or something like that, 3/8 inch tube, you don't need to go all the way down to the table. But I don't know exactly what I'm going to, maybe sheet metal and stuff. So I want it to go pretty close. So I just trimmed it. And on these, I found out it was pretty close to being very right up at the tip and back. And then I just radiused in this corner too. So I'll just set it up there, and I'll set it so I can do it. And I won't bother to show you, but I just set it up there like that. Ran a magnet in to hold it up square. And positioned it where I wanted it so it was centered on my little stud going down. And I've got room to weld on both sides of it. So I just go in and I'll tack one corner on the front, turn it around, tack one corner, opposite corner on the back side. Then I'll flip it over and give a decent weld on the bottom edge where it mounts up so it doesn't pull from the heat distortion. So that's all there is to it. So I got one more of these little pieces to turn. This is a piece of something that was bought and I didn't get labeled well enough, so it's looking kind of ragged here, but it's all right. All we're going to do is turn one more of these studs so I can finish my last 2 little hold down clamps today. The only reason I'm doing this last one is just to finish these up because I have got all the settings. I don't have to think about it too much here. That's enough to mark our length. We should be able to make this in one pass here. And that's that. I'll just take it over, bob it off in the Evolution chop saw, and then we'll be ready to weld it back up there. Alright guys, final little update for the day before I go in day after Christmas. And I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. This is the status of it right now. I've got 4 of these little clamps built. They work really well already. I've used them. So drop in, lock them up. You know, I've got 8 of the other ones. I'll do some 6-inch ones once they come on sale, but I'm not paying full price for them because they always come on sale. So the other thing I've done, and of course you've seen all my crap, all my barrel vise stuff and everything on this end. I've had this little Atlas arbor press for several years. I use it some. I put it on this riser stand, and I'll bolt it down occasionally, do it for, you know, use it for this, that, or something else, but I've never really had a good place for it. So I've decided this is going to be the good place for it. So what I've done is, since I had the stand already, I've taken and made a couple, I got fresh paint on it, so I've got a mess here. Welded in a couple more studs, these same style studs that I've got here, and I milled a slot in the back of my mount. So the way it goes on is it sets right there, and I've got this little piece, which is still hot, but I did the same thing. I did a stud on the back, and I did a alignment block down here for it, and I should have made this shoulder longer on this stud. I'm going to have to make some changes to it, but anyway, the way it goes in is it will lock right in there like that, and I will drill and tap one more hole. I didn't want a hole in the middle of those because that ends up in the middle of one of the legs, and if something falls down there, it's just lost to the world. But I'm going to go ahead and drill and tap one more hole, and that way it'll bolt down with one 5/8 bolt. So the other option with it for right now, since I haven't done it yet, is you can use one of these fancy little clamps, anchor it down, and you've mounted I've mounted my little arbor press. So nice little Atlas arbor press. You know, it's wore out. I need a new platen. I've never had a platen for it. This is off of a Harbor Fright press that I've got. Doesn't fit, and it's just not what it needs. So I haven't done anything else with it. So storage wise on this, what I'm going to do is to take and build me one more little plate. I'll drill holes in it to accept that, and I can lift it right off, and it's going to set right down here and drop into those pins to hold it in place. So that's where it's going to go, is right underneath the bench. That's where it'll live. But now I've got a home for that. Back to the utility of the fixture table. So anyway, this is just about the state it's going to stay in. I am going to build me a little swing out stool to go down on underneath. This stool's the right height for me, so I'm going to make it this height, although I may make it adjustable. And I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I want it to be compact when I'm not using it. The stool top's probably going to be separate for it. I'm probably going to do a hinged arm that just comes out here, swings out here, and when it's folded away, it comes along here and probably has an angle. It sets along this side. I don't want to interfere with anything else that's on here, like the handle for the barrel vise or my hammers that are hung here. So the bracket's probably going to hinge out right here. Come, like I say, come across, have an L in it. So when it's folded out, it'll come out and have an L, and then I can just drop the seat on it. That's kind of my plan. But anyway, I'm pretty excited about it. It's make things more useful and at least somewhat more organized. So the next thing will be a rack for all my clamps. And we're going to build some taller clamps of those, and we'll build smallers of these. But I need storage for it. It's going to have to be a freestanding rack of some sort because I don't want to give up wall space that I've got. This is all going to change. And, you know, it needs to be mobile, but I don't want it to take up any more room than what I've got. So it's probably just my initial thoughts, or it's going to be a kind of an angled out rack that's got probably just angle irons set in it with holes in it so that I can take these clamps like this, and the same way with those clamps, and I can just set them in and line them up across the way. So we'll see what happens with that, but that's the plan. Anyway, hopefully it gives you a few ideas, lets you know what's going on in the shop here day after Christmas, and hope you guys all had a Merry Christmas. And that's where we're at. So I'm going to go in for the rest of the day, spend the rest of the day with the family. So any comments, suggestions, ideas for me, leave them in the comment section for me below, guys. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch.